some of the context around this is we've been speaking to some of the governors and some of the risk teams at different lending protocols, and in particular, like Morpho Blue. In order for eUSD to have a vault there, it needs to have very deep liquidity against USDC or Tether or ETH, basically. Those are kind of the three options. And so it would be very valuable for eUSD to have deeper USDC liquidity. And so a thought is that governors, RSR stakers could stand to make a lot more money via higher TVL by deepening the USDC liquidity in particular.
Okay.
I have a question. So when you say deepening the USDC liquidity, what do you mean by that? Do you mean by just making like a USDC based basket, or
By having there be a really, really big curve or Uniswap pool of where you can trade directly USD versus USDC without jumping between too many pools. So the Frax base pool right now, USD, Frax, and USDC
right?
isn't actually a great opportunity for this because Frax base pool over time has gotten heavier and heavier weighted Frax. So eUSD is paired with Frax base pool, and Frax base pool is itself 80% Frax. And so only 10% of the eUSD Frax base pool on Curve, only 10% of it is USDC as opposed to 50% of it. And so even though that pool's $5 million of liquidity, there's actually only $500,000 of USDC in there.
Okay. And the solution the solution would be creating a simply a pair for eUSD and USDC on Curve, and growing that really big would make
That's
more so.
one. That's one option. I think candidly, we still need to check a bit with Morpho on what the best place for the liquidity would be. But we've got curve votes that we're spreading around all the R tokens in various different ways. But it could be pretty interesting to experiment similar to RGUSD with eUSD in particular, focusing on really deep liquidity versus USDC with a portion of its revenue.
Interesting. Okay.
So like, okay, if we were to just look at the rough numbers, so if we go to register and we say how much revenue has EUSD made in the last, probably 3 months is probably the most relevant time frame, right?
Yep.
Is that something you can find?
Well, we can do some napkin math. What's it? The underlying yield is like 13% right now.
10.39%.
10.39%.
Yes.
All right, let's call it 10% for easy math.
Hmm.
So that's $2.2 million a year
Okay.
divided by 12 is 185,000 approximately a month of revenue.
So what is like 185,000 per month? Uh, get us
Wow, that
if
would
we were to well, that would be all of it. I understand. But
that would be quite a bit. But even so, 5% of that is around 10K, right? Just under 10K. Let's just use 10K as a number. 10K a month, that would be 120K a year of incentives to a pool at five, call it 10% yield. You're looking at that's $1 million of liquidity right there.
So what if we did
Approximately.
25%? Like would that like that just like came to me as like 25% as like a good number to splash and see what happens. Um, like I don't think that we would ever increase it to like 30, 50%, something like that. That might seem a little bit that might start to dissuade. Oh, hey, dollar joined. That might start to dissuade potential stakers, right? If you're shaving off 50% of the rewards, right?
It would. Yeah, I mean, at some point, there's a trade-off between how much bigger does it make the overall TVL of eUSD, right? If you take 25% of the yield from stakers, do you think it's going to make eUSD more than 33% bigger in market cap? Because that's kind of the bet you're taking.
Well, I want to be totally honest. I don't know. This is yeah, this is something where nobody in the community really has any expertise on this. I feel like maybe besides
Yeah.
Tom, because he's seen this the most. Um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Maybe so we've done some math on the various different incentive mechanisms, and maybe what we could do is we could put together a spreadsheet and share it in Discord and go through what it could turn into and why it would make sense, why it could potentially make sense. Another option, there's like the new RGUSD, eUSD, USDC pool. Another option is teaming up with RGUSD and getting that pool really big.
That's what I
Because
was
then we
thinking
get like,
earlier.
yeah, that would be pretty cool, right?
Would just an eUSD to RGUSD maybe just be more? Um, but it's like and this is one of the things I was trying to figure out with our podcast. To be totally honest, was okay. So how does eUSD maintain its relevance to RGUSD? How do you say okay? Well, RGUSD, like how, how do we sway RGUSD in our favor for incentivizing eUSD at all?
Yeah, I mean, kind of interesting. So RGUSD, their goal is to just put the yield to wherever the TVL is, right? And for it to be the perfect liquidity pair. And so I wonder, so I don't think they would have a problem with helping to incentivize liquidity depth. Um, the in terms of like USD versus RGUSD, they definitely have different value props. Like RGUSD is all about yield share, whereas USD is more about safety and diversification, right? And so USD investing in liquidity depth is valuable because it makes it more likely that people would use it and hold it. Um, but I don't think they're necessarily competing with each other too much. They're a little bit because it's like both on the reserve protocol, but I think they're pretty distinct products in terms of their value props. Like RGUSD has one thing in the backing, right? So it's got none of the diversification. It's got much less over collateralization.
Maybe what I'm saying is, what incentive does RGUSD have to um, lend help to USD? I'm not saying like competition or anything like that,
Ah, well,
because it's
my understanding is that
resources.
RGUSD just wants to be a liquidity path between different tokens indexes. So RGUSD, I believe, what would help them be successful based on what they've told me is they just want to be paired with as many things as possible and have as deep as liquidity as possible.
Okay. So do you think maybe like a potential path forward would be like 5% to a eUSD USDC pool, 5% to like a tri pool with eUSD, RGUSD, and USDC, and then like a third 5% to like eUSD to RGUSD pool. Does that make sense, or am I being weird?
No. Well, so it does make sense, but I actually think it would make the most sense for USD to just pay for one specific liquidity spot.
Okay.
Something that we've found with incentives, with liquidity incentives, is that they are most efficient if they're concentrated.
Okay. So do you think the tri pool is probably like a good initial way to go, or
Yeah, I think the tripole is a good initial way to go. I do want to, I do, we need to check with the Morpho and Gauntlet team, who does a lot of their risk analysis, on what they think would constitute, like what would be their preferred place for liquidity depth. It might be a Uniswap pool, for instance, with
okay?
like really tight ranges or something.
Okay. Um. So
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 that
is,
that might make most sense.
go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
So let's say that the Uniswap is the best option for eUSD. What what is going to be the, I guess, the utilization outside of, let's say, Morpho Blue, for just a specific Uniswap pool with USDC and eUSD in it that has really high liquidity? Who's going to be using that pool, or is it simply going to just be there for the liquidity to prove to, or I guess for the Morpho integration?
So I think it'll actually be the easiest way for people to obtain USD generally, because it's cheaper than minting to swap
Right.
on main. So the deeper the DEX liquidity, um, the easier it is for people to obtain USD. And so it helps for Morpho, but it also helps for any other integrations.
Gotcha.
Or for people just obtaining it and bridging it to base, which is where like 30 or 50% of the USD supply is now, which is kind of crazy.
So what is where does Ugly Cash, I guess, get their, like, what's their preference for where they get the liquidity for eUSD from?
I mean, like everyone else, they want to get it in the cheapest way possible.
Where
And
have they been minting it?
they have been, um, they haven't needed to mint too much yet. Originally, they minted it. Um, but as they need new liquidity, they're going to figure out what is the cheapest way possible to do it. So whether that's swapping on Curve or Uniswap or minting, they'll just do whatever is the cheapest way to do it.
Gotcha.
Quick, quick question on that. How frequently do they update their holdings based on app usage? I mean, are they rebalancing often or not?
Definitely, they will be rebalancing often. I can't speak too closely to exactly what the details are. Um, Honestly, it's because I don't exactly know all of them off the back of my hand.
Right.
But the idea is for them to do it as frequently as possible. But they've got they had to pull some fairly complicated logistics off in order to actually get this product to market and, make sure that everyone's happy on the bank and the credit card providers and, all those different things. And so there's a whole bunch of hoops that they need to jump through to make things happen.
Yeah, I can imagine that
Yeah.
bridge that they showed in the values in the video sounds kind of
Yeah.
insane.
So there's a whole bunch of hops, but I think them, like anyone else, if they want USD, they want to get it in the cheapest way possible with the least amount of loss, whether that's gas fees or other things.
So, given that so much of it is now on base, is that sort of a realistic place for those exchanges to happen?
Definitely. And uh, I think you know, base deposits and withdrawals will be a really cool thing for them. Because then it'll be really easy for customers too, not just them.
Right. Yeah, it seems like there's so much hype around base right now. It does, and with Coinbase, gradually making it easier to just move between their regular app and the on-chain stuff. It seems like that's going to be the Grand Central Station, so to speak, of centralized
It
and
does.
decentralized apps.
It does, right? Um, yeah, that Coinbase is moving all their customer deposits there. Seems like liquidity and base is going to get really deep. So, in terms of potential next steps, why don't I'll work with someone on the team on putting together a uh, like a Google sheet that we all could play around with and share more broadly to other USD stakers, and we can see if it's something that people think makes sense. And nope, we lost Tom. He ran out of the room. He's back. um, we can figure out if it's something that people think makes sense, and then maybe move it forward to a governance proposal if everyone thinks it is viable.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's not much else to really talk about here.
Yeah, it's kind of
It's
like how much. The big questions are like what percent, and how do we tell if it's successful? Maybe we could like set a time frame to run the test.
I agree.
You know,
Um, okay, yeah,
So, do
and
you mean
then
a time frame for how long part of the revenue is directed that way?
yeah, and like I could imagine a world where the stakers vote to do it for 3 months, and then if it doesn't achieve the liquidity goals that were intended, maybe voting to switch it back.
do you think it? I mean, do you think that it could potentially, grow the TVL millions or?
I mean, it kind of comes down to that. So, just using round numbers, uh, not saying these should be the numbers, but like Braden, you threw out 25% of revenue go to liquidity incentives. Um, in order for RSR stakers to make the same amount of revenue in total, that would mean the USD supply would need to grow by 33% to get back to the 100%, right? And so at least by 33%, right? So like whatever, if you're doing it by 5%, I can't do that math in my head, but to grow back to 100, it'd be like growing by 7% or something. Um, And so whatever the amount is, we have to, the simple math is, will it grow by more than that? And we can back into how much we think liquidity incentives on a curve pool or a Uniswap pool would go in terms of deepening the liquidity, potentially unlocking a Morpho vault, and things of that nature.
Okay, yeah, I think this has been pretty good. How's it going, Grimo? You can take a seat.
Question. what is the number for to unlock Morpho? What is that liquidity number? Just curious.
It was like whatever. There's a limit on the size of the market that's based on the depth of the liquidity. And so like I think it was around a third was the number that they said to us. I'll confirm this when I check with them on the DEX liquidity pools that they prefer. I think it was around a third. So like say it's a $3 million liquidity pool, they would do a $1 million lending market.
Gotcha.
I wish more people would have shown up. It feels like there are all these people that are staking on eUSD, and this is now a good time for them to ask questions about what this is and how do I benefit. Okay, I'm redirecting a portion of my rewards that are, securing eUSD. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And it's kind of dubious. It's like, well, we can try it and just see how it goes. And I think that's totally fine, especially since there are so many people that are just continuously staking on USD. It hints that this should be totally fine. And so, this should definitely move to, some sort of an RFC. And so put that on the forums, and then I'll put this recording there too. And then additionally, my notes that I've written down, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. I'll get someone to run the numbers, and we'll share it in the Discord.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. And then I'll link that in the RFC as well in the forums. Does anybody have any other
Awesome.
questions or comments?
I have a super quick question, not related to this at all. This mini documentary that I'm working on, Thomas, you're kind of featured a fair amount in it, and there's one little
Nice.
piece of audio that I need that I don't have. So I'm in touch with Nevin and Reno on this, but I'm wondering if there's any way that you could record one like phrase for me that would tie this piece of the video together really well.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool.
Why don't you DM me on Discord and we can figure out what the best time to record it is.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's something you could do on your own time and just send it over. It's pretty it's like 4 words, and I could just splice it in.
Sure. Yeah. DM me in Discord and let me know, and I'll get that done for you.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. Well, Braden and Dasha, thanks for organizing this.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate it. And just thank you for coming. And everybody just enjoy the rest of your night. And we'll talk to you soon.
Cool, see you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.